Welcome back to the Good Enough Garage. We got Chris's Corvette still in here. We got the headlights done on the last episode, the headlight doors. On this episode, we're going to be lowering this thing. So we're going to do about 2-3 inches in the front, 1 to 2 inches out back. Going to show you how to do this in a nice budget way. We're just basically going to cut the springs in the front and run some longer bolts in the rear. It's not the most ideal way to do it, but it'll work and it'll be fine. First thing we're going to start on is the front end. We're going to get this thing jacked up, get the wheels pulled off, and get in there, get the springs pulled out, and start cutting them. So I'll kind of walk you through this whole thing. I'm White Wall Steve, and this is my Good Enough Garage. Alright, so let's get this thing jacked up. So we got it all jacked up. First thing we're going to want to do is get the shock out. So you got a bolt right here. So we're going to get that shock out, and then you got 2 bolts on the bottom. So we'll get those out. We got to get this tie rod off of here, and we got to get this sway bar link out of there. Once we do that, we can undo the lower ball joint, let her drop down. We'll put a jack underneath there, try to get it to swing down enough to get that spring out. We'll cut that spring, put it all back together, and then we'll do the other side. We're going to take this cotter pin out. Okay. Of course, we'll replace that cotter pin when we get to it. Now we're going to buzz that off. This is set up, we kind of have to pull the spindle off in order to do this properly because of the way that the spindle mounts to the bottom ball joint. We took the pads out of the caliper. We're going to take the caliper off, kind of swing it out of the way, and then we're going to get this spindle broken off so that we can get to all this. It takes a little bit more, but we want to make sure this is done correctly. This thing looks like it's got fairly new calipers on it. Okay, and we'll pull that out of the way. For right now, we're just going to put it like that until we get the spindle off. And then we're going to go ahead, get this cotter pin out for the upper ball joint. Okay. And then we're going to get this upper ball joint out, which should be a 3/4. Yep. Okay. Like that. Surprisingly, that all came out really nice. So now we should be able to knock the spindle right out of here. Let me put the nut on the bottom one so this thing doesn't completely fall off. Okay. And we'll get out our pickle fork and take that caliper, kind of put it, I'm going to grab something to hang it up with, and we'll hang it up out of the way. Just kind of do that with it. Okay, and then we'll just, there. Now we got that spindle completely off. Now we can drop the control arm and get the spring out of there. We'll be very gently let her down. All right. Now there is a little bit of tension on that spring, so you want to be real careful. So we got to get that spring out of there. There we go. Okay. Now we got the spring out. Let's go ahead and work on getting this cut. We got the spring out, so this is where we're going to cut. We're going to cut from the bottom, where it was mounted on the bottom, not on the top, because the top's always got to be square. This is going to be not so square. So here's our end. This would be one coil, one full coil, and then this would be two full coils right here. We don't want to do two full coils. We actually want to do 1.5. So we're going to do one, and then we're going to come all the way around to here, and that's going to be our half. So we're going to cut that bad boy right there. Okay, there's your 1.5 coils. Let's get this all put back up in there. Now you want to make sure you're in the spring pocket up top. So you always want to take a look, kind of go up in there. Make sure you're in that spring pocket up there. It doesn't look like we are at the moment. Now it looks like we're in the spring pocket. I'll go ahead, jack it up, get it to where it needs to be. Double check, make sure we're in the spring pocket. Which we are. We're looking good. Okay, let's go ahead and get this all slapped back together. Back over on this side, how it was. Okay. Alright, now we're going to put the tie rod back on and the sway bar link. Okay. We'll have to wait until we do the other side to knock that out. Okay. So this side's pretty much done. I had to order new shocks for this, so I'm waiting on the new shocks to show up. So this side's pretty much done. I'm going to do the other side off camera. And then when we get this thing put back down on the ground, I'll bring you guys back. We got the passenger side all done. Don't have shocks in here right now because I got to wait for the shocks to come in. They should be here tomorrow. But I want to get this thing back down on the ground, see how low this thing actually is. We took 1.5 coils out of the springs. That's about the maximum I would ever take out of a spring. She's got some settling to do, so it'll probably settle maybe about another 1/2 inch, and that should put him right where he wants to be. I mean, it's lower. If he wants to go lower than that, I suggest just getting new springs. I am waiting on the bolts, so I can't do the rear just yet, but we got the front down. Once the rest of the parts show up, we'll come back and get this thing finished. The front's pretty much good where it's at, all buttoned up, new shocks, everything's all set. So now we're gonna move to the back. I'll show you guys how to lower the back of one of these, real simple. So we're gonna get it jacked up, get the wheels pulled off, and I'll show you guys how to do that. Okay, not sure how well you can see, but here's the spring. So this thing's got a transverse leaf spring, and it's got this bolt here. And this bolt is what controls the ride height, more or less. What we're going to do is we're going to jack up this side of the spring, take all the tension off, and then we're going to get this bolt out of here. And then we're going to replace it with a longer bolt, which should bring the ride height down. So we're going to do that right now. Okay. Alright, so now we got the tension off of there. So what we're going to do next is pull this cotter pin out. Okay. Okay, and once you get that nut off the bottom, you want to get your bushing off of there. And all that. Okay. And then we're going to want to let that spring down so that we can get that bolt out of there. So now we let the spring down slow. Okay. Once you got your spring down, and you want to pull that bolt out. Comes right out through the top of the trailing arm. She was in there pretty good. Okay, get your bushing and everything back out of there. And now we'll get our new bolt, put our new bolt in. So now you can see how much longer our new bolt is than the stock one. And the stock one won't have a cotter pin, it just has a jam nut. So there'll be no cotter pin or castle nut, and we'll get this all put on right now. We're going to push this bolt all the way through. Okay. And then we're going to jack the spring up enough to get this bolt in there. You want to have enough so you can get your bushing and your nut all on there and get it tightened down. So bushing first, then your washer, then your nut. Okay. We're going to want to get that all tightened up. Alright, so we got both sides all done. Let's put her down on the ground and see how low she goes. Now that she's back down on the ground, I'm pretty sure we got to roll this thing forward and backwards. So, yeah. Because it came down a little bit, but those wheels got to come back out because they were drooping. Right now they got positive camber. We're going to want to roll this thing down the driveway and back down. So I got to get this thing so it can run. Got a couple more things to do to it. So when I come back, we'll see how low this thing actually is. Hey guys, so as you can see, the 76 Vette is gone. We brought the Skylark back, but I did get that thing all squared away, kind of fiddled around and lost some footage, good old camera and technology. But I was able to get the car finished and get it back to the customer. Here's a picture of what it looks like completely done. We ended up getting about 1.5 to 2 inch drop in the rear, and we got about 3 inches in the front. The front's definitely going to settle a little bit as he drives it, but the rear is pretty much where it is. And he's really happy with it because he kind of wants the rear tires to stick out a little bit. So if he does that, he definitely doesn't want to go any lower than that. But if you did want to go lower, you'd have to change the rear spring to a lowering spring. So that takes care of the lowering of a C3 Corvette. Pretty basic, and if you wanted to do it on a budget, that's the best way to do it. There's other ways that you can do it with coilovers. You could do it with drop springs. You could do it with air ride. There's a lot of different ways, but this was just a budget way to show you guys how to do it. That's going to do it for this episode. Be sure to like and subscribe. I'll see you guys next time on the Good Enough Garage. See ya.